This is quite amazing. We are going to be just waiting a couple of seconds more so that everybody gets on time. I really know that people are spending some time just checking the last email, so we need to give time to everybody to be here. Thank you, Rose, to be being with us.
Thank you for having me.
It is really a pleasure, in fact. This time around, the topic, I feel like it's going to be quite important because, I mean, in general, we discuss a lot about what are the challenges to learn, but what exactly are the challenges for people who already have challenges to learn in the most appropriate manner? And this is a topic that relates quite a lot with a huge population, and we are not always aware about how big is the population and how we can overcome the challenges, especially in the area of mental well-being, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, let's start.
Yeah.
We have a lot to cover today. If there is any question, please feel free to write in the chat your questions, and we are going to be answering to them really quickly, right?
Yes. So my name is Rose, and this is a really special topic to me, and I'm so glad to have this opportunity to bring more awareness, as I'm a dyslexic myself. And I'm glad to say that today I'm in my 3rd year in Middlesex University, because it was quite a journey from here to discovering it, understanding it, accepting it, coping with it. And so I'd like to share my story with you over here, because I feel like some of you may find it relatable and probably understand that this is also something that probably I went through in my younger days or in my teenage or probably adult life. So I was about 3 years old, and so back in the days, learning strategies of memorizing and understanding things was just writing it 100 times, so it's going to stick to your head. And so my mom had made me write the spelling one, ONE1, 100 times. And so I did it, and I wrote ONE1 100 times, and she flipped the page and said, okay, write it now. And I wrote ENO. And she was like, wait, you wrote it 100 times. How can you get it wrong? And she's like, this doesn't make sense. And she spoke to a few teachers, and they were like, oh, you're just making a big deal out of it. You know, they're just kids and they'll make a lot of mistakes. And so don't take it too seriously. And she was like, okay, fine, I won't. And she let it go. And then I reached my school years, and I was in my 2nd grade, and I was doing really bad. And no matter how much I tried of copying the notes from the board or listening to the teacher, understanding what you're saying, it was just really difficult. I was just not able to, especially when I was writing my notes, and I'm trying to write as fast as I could, but she'd be already erasing the board and done with everything. And I was like, I would get so frustrated to a point, like I'm trying my hard. It's not like I'm not trying and I've given up or something. I'm trying every single day, but it's still not, I'm not able to understand, I'm not able to write. It was difficult for me to read as well, especially in class. They used to make you stand up and read in front of the whole class. So one, you're already nervous, you can't read, and then you're just making more mistakes while standing in front of everyone and read. And a lot of people used to make fun of you, especially teachers would go like, oh, you're just lazy, you don't care, you're not putting enough efforts, you're a very stubborn child. They used to label me so many things, and they used to tell my mother as well, like, your child just does not, she's just dumb, she's just stupid. Like that was the easiest thing for them to say, instead of actually understanding more in depth. And my mom was like, I know my daughter, it's not that she doesn't care, she does, because I have seen her put in effort. And she tried to do a lot of research, and one day on the radio she heard someone say that she was just listing out symptoms, and her mom was like, that makes kind of sense to with my daughter. And then she's like, okay. So I went and got a diagnosis, and the doctor was like, yes, your daughter is severely dyslexic, so these are the techniques that she needs to use to study. And I'd actually like to read out she gave me an essay to write, and I was about 7 years old. And she was like, okay, so it was a picture of a war with some elephants and ladies they were fighting with each other. And so this is what I wrote. And it was like, the elephant is fighting with the people, and the people are coming to fight with the elephant. It is a hot day. The mother are crying. The people are dying. So there was so many spelling mistakes, and the sentence were so broken and they didn't make sense. And I'm pretty sure a few of you may as well be still dealing with it, because you have not got a diagnosis, or you've not met with the doctor to understand exactly what is the reason. And I feel like this is really important. But since I got the diagnosis and I did the different techniques, and I was supposed to fail my second grade to go to the third grade, and just like, she doesn't even need to do the exam. She's going to fail. Just don't even bother with it. Like, it's for sure she's failing. But my mom was like, no, I'm going to make her do the exam. I want her to do because I know she can do it. And I sat all the hours possible studying with the different techniques and everything. And I actually got an A. So it is possible. It's not impossible. You're not having a disability. You just have to try different techniques. Everybody has different techniques to learn, understand, and grow in life and reach their full potential. And in high school, it was a little difficult because not many teachers were aware of it. So I changed my school to a school where they knew what learning challenges were and what were the different ways they could help. And so school was pretty good, and then the management changed and things started crashing again, and the teachers stopped caring as much as they used to. So they used to just started segregating children. They put us in the STEM department, where they would be like, yeah, these are the weak students, don't really bother with them, just give them an easy worksheet and put them on the side. It was something like that. And I was like, the worksheet seemed easy, and I was like, okay, I can do the worksheet, so the exams should be the same. And I kept doing it, and I was always looked down by everyone, and everyone had already had a judgmental image of me that I was not smart enough, I was weak, and I was not trying, and I didn't care. I don't know, there was just people it's just easy to judge. I think that is the easiest thing they do. And so somehow I scraped my years through high school, and then I reached university. And they had a department for not just people with learning challenges, but any difficulty. Like, even if you didn't know English, you didn't know Arabic, you didn't know anything, they would help you in all the ways possible. And they were so positive, they were so encouraging. They never made it seem like you couldn't do it or it was really hard. So my main problem when I reached university was making my ideas in order, especially for essays. And usually they give you 2,500 words to write essays, and you're like, that's a lot of writing, and it's really difficult. So I would go to the teacher and be like, these are my ideas, but I don't know how to put it in an essay, and I'm kind of scared to start because I feel I'm never going to finish. And she's like, it's okay. So each paragraph you write in 200 words, and each idea put in this paragraph. So she organized everything for me. She's like, you can write. And I was like, that seems pretty easy. I was like, okay. So I did the essay, gave it to her. She checked all my grammatical mistakes, any sentence mistakes, and she's like, it's perfect, you can send it. So just with that little encouragement, that positivity of like, you are equal as everyone, you just need a different way to do it, I'm here to help you for that, and that's it. You do your job, and don't worry about the rest. And then that was really, really, really encouraging, because I stopped feeling like I couldn't do a lot of things. And so here I am today, being able to speak about it as well. And I'd really love to bring this awareness to a lot of people. And if you feel like you are struggling with things, first step is to go get a diagnosis, to know exactly where you stand. So why is it important to get a diagnosis? Well, without a diagnosis, you may be completely oblivious to what you're dealing with, and you may start blaming it in your own abilities, and it may impact your professional and your personal life, and it could lead to low self-esteem, which can lead to many emotional psychological problems, especially depression as well, because you stop believing in yourself. And this may even lead for you to be embarrassed to even tell someone what your difficulty is, and you may be standing back instead of reaching your full potential. And it might be just you're just stuck in a certain place, and you're not able to understand what's wrong. So it's really important to go and get a diagnosis, because once you do and you get the assistance required, and it may help you enhancing your social skills, reach your full potential, and find a rewarding job and be able to live independently. And you may not need to worry anymore, because now you know the help you need, the techniques that you need, and what could really help you to reach that full potential.
Exactly. No, and before you go on, I just want to frame it, before you put, in fact, your hat of a psychologist, I just want to get back to the essence of why we are doing this today. So I just wanted to highlight something that it is quite important about the relevancy of the topic today. So COVID has put the spotlight on the human needs, and you have mentioned it, Rose, this idea of everybody needs to have an opportunity to be fulfilled at work or in their education. And that goes, it is quite correlated with the needs that are specific to the sense of belonging, to being part of something bigger, being the same, treated fairly as the same of the rest of the group, and also need of self-actualization to be the best that you can, right? So mental well-being has been one of the core topics during this COVID phase, but it is much more difficult if you have a specific learning challenge. It is a fact, in fact, that people who have learning challenges are suffering twice as much as people who don't have them. So that makes it like the population with learning disabilities might be paying a higher toll of the price in terms of the mental health. And we are not talking about a very small population. Here we are talking about 5% of the population having ADHD challenges. We are talking about around 20% of people having dyslexia, and that's why it makes it relevant today to take your perspective, not only as someone who has been living these challenges, but also your perspective as a psychologist, which is, that's why when you suggested to have this discussion and create awareness, it became really important for me that this happened. So we have already got the introduction about Rose, who is a student in psychology and who's living and thriving with learning challenges. And also you have Ivan Palomino, myself, who is kind of an engineer turned working in the corporate world for approximately 17 years in marketing, in corporate strategy. And 2 years ago, I decided with my co-founder to go and find a solution in order to help people in corporations or in higher education how to learn in a better way. As simple as possible. There is millions and millions of dollars that are spent by corporations in order to upskill or re-skill their employees. And it's not always easy to convert the knowledge into actions. So, and this is where we at Bessern, we have combined the methodology based on neuroscience and technology in order to help them really practice what they do in order to don't depend only on motivation, like today I don't have the time, or I'm going to be procrastinating for a couple of days because I don't feel like doing something, and help them to convert knowledge into action. And we speak quite a lot about it in different tier 1 magazines like Prime Magazine, Forbes. Recently we were published in the National, because what we are doing has an effect not only on learning, but on the mental well-being of people. Because when you feel fulfilled, you feel better at what you do, and you don't have to suffer in terms of, and you can convert, in fact, the knowledge that you have about self-management of your well-being into actions that are quite important to share. So coming back to your hat of psychologist, so we say that it is the the rates of people who have learning disabilities is quite important. We have said dyslexia is up to 20%. We have said that ADHD it is around 5% of the population. I would like to have your opinion, Rose, on how would you define these two most common learning challenges, ADHD and dyslexia? What is the definition? And potentially, how can you spot these early signs?
Yes. So what exactly is a learning challenge? Well, it's basically when individuals are neurologically wired differently, and because of that, they may have difficulty in reading, writing, spelling, standard reasoning, recalling, or organizing. But with the right support and intervention, you can succeed in the workplace. It is possible. You're not having a disability where you cannot do something. You can. It's just you need the right key, the right path to take. So so there are different actually learning challenges, which is dyslexia, ADHD, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, non-verbal disabilities, oral written language disorder, and specific reading comprehension deficit. Autism, there's actually many more, but today we're going to be talking about dyslexia and ADHD. So what is dyslexia? Dyslexia is a learning challenge that affects the way brain processes and interprets information. And the symptoms of them is difficulty in reading and writing, difficulty with spelling, not because of not understanding phonetics, and not able to distinguish sometimes between the right and left, not able to copy informations accurately. You may start creating your own words by mistake while writing, or having written the words twice, like and it's very common when you're having dyslexia. And probably difficulty in summarizing certain paragraphs or essays, especially if you're learning to be a lawyer and you'll have a lot of cases and you have to summarize them. You may find difficulty with that. Difficulty in memorizing, time management, and sometimes you may just get too overwhelmed with a lot of information when you have to understand and communicate it. So that's main part of dyslexia. What is ADHD? So one of the most common one in adults is ADHD. It's an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and many adults suffer from it. It's basically, it's not really about inattention and hyperactivity. It's not where someone's constantly clicking the pen and you're so excited and you're always having to move around. It's sometimes also in the brain where your brain's constantly always at a rapid function, rapid work, and there's too many things going on that you're not able to focus on the one thing that you're doing right now. And that causes a lot of difficulty to go through your day because your brains are always functioning, and because of that you tend to become tired really fast, and by half the day you're trying to push through with that 1% of battery in your system. And so what are the few symptoms of ADHD? Well, one of them is brain fog. Brain fog happens because there's too many things going on, so it's just really messy in your brain. You're not able to focus on anything, and it just becomes a fog, and you're not able to have a proper conversation or probably focus on the conversation you're having with someone, remembering the conversation. That's one of the very important things. Sometimes you may feel confused, disorganized, and mentally lost. And they often lose things such as keys, wallets, eyeglasses, and this happens very constantly. It's not like once in a while that happens, but it happens too many times that you're like, this is, why do I keep forgetting it? It happens all the damn time I'm going out. And basically it affects your social skills because you're not able to concentrate on what the other person is trying to tell you and understand the information. And all this sometimes could lead to procrastination, where you have a work given to you and you're not able to focus. And that you start, doubting yourself, and you feel like you're not able to do it. You think you're not going to give your best work out, and suddenly you start doubting yourself, and it leads to procrastination. And a lot of time goes and you're like, oh, I didn't get to the work that I was supposed to. And then you start blaming yourself. But actually, it's because you have ADHD and you've not gotten yourself diagnosed. So it's important. So instead of calling it a learning disability or a difficulty, I'd like to call it neurodivergent. Basically, these individuals are neurodivergent because it's not because they're not able to do these things. They just have to find different ways they were able to do these different techniques. So especially for ADHD individuals, sometimes you need to have medication because in your body, your dopamine level is really low. So depending on how severely you have ADHD, because there's mild, there's severe, there's profound. So depending on your diagnosis, you may know if you need medications or not. So it's important. And so where did this word neurodivergent become popular from? So Judy Singer, a sociologist who has autism, started using this term neurodiversity in the late 1990s. It's referred to a concept that certain brain development happens are normal variations in the brain. And people who have these features also have so many strengths that they don't realize, because there's always that if you're not able to read, you'll be amazing at visuals. If you're not able to write, you'll be amazing at speaking. But you're so focused on what's difficult for you, you're not able to focus on what you are able to do and what probably you're amazing at doing. And like people with ADHD may have trouble with time management, but they often show high levels of passion, drive, and creative thinking. And they're not able to know because they're so focused on everyone's judgment on them. And because they always look, everyone looks at the downside of being neurodivergent. And especially people with dyslexia can perceive certain kinds of visual information better than those without the condition. This skill can be useful for jobs like engineering and computer graphics. Everybody just needs to realize that everybody is different. Nobody works the same way. Nobody understands things the same way. Would you like to add anything, Ivan?
I was just thinking while you were talking that there is some data that tell us that 80% of the population believes that dyslexia is associated with low level of intelligence, which exactly is not the reality.
Yeah, that's
what we are saying is here that the fact that you have a challenge on using a specific standardized way, like most of people, it doesn't mean that you have a disability in reality, because one, there is the fact that you can compensate it with other abilities. Secondly, it is in most of the cases, it is you just need to find your way to self-manage your process, your thought process, to create processes that will allow you to achieve the same result as anyone else, but with another method. And that's why the wording neurodivergence is quite appropriate. It means that you are not doing the things in the same way as others, but it doesn't mean that you will do it worse or
not able to do it.
It can be better. So, and I wanted to share also the fact that there is a lot of people that are famous and who have been suffering of ADHD. So first thinking is about Albert Einstein. So Albert Einstein had ADHD. There is Thomas Edison, the inventor of the bulb. Mozart, musician. Walt Disney, super creative. John Lennon, super creative. Michael Phelps, who is one of the I think he's the guy who won the highest number of Olympic medals. And now he's, by the way, representative of people who have like mental challenges through a company called Talkspace. So all of these people not only were capable of managing one of the ways in order to reach the same, and manage other ways in order to reach even better ways. So anyone can be successful with learning challenges. And you said it very clearly. It is about how do I manage my mental capacity, the self-belief that I have, the confidence that I have in me, in order to have the mental capacity to find my alternative path. Because everybody needs to have an alternative path in order to be successful at work. And that's something that we need to talk a little bit more about the impact in terms of the mental health for people with not learning disabilities, suffering from standard learning abilities. Let's call it that way.
So basically, when you're undiagnosed, you may go through a lot of mental challenges, especially because you start self-doubting, as I said before. So when you start self-doubting, you feel that you're not able to do many things. You start getting high levels of anxiety, fear. Fear goes so high that it stops you from doing things that you could have done, or see the positive sides, or see things that you are able to do. And that leads to depression, where you completely sink into depression, leads to burnouts. It leads to just not being happy in life generally, with your personal life, your work life. And it starts affecting you in many different ways, where you might start isolating yourself. And because of that, it leads to really, really major mental issues. But once you do get diagnosed, you see things in a different way, a more brighter way, a more positive way, because you realize that you can do everything that you want to do. You can do more than things probably that you wanted to do at your workplace, in your personal life, in your social life. And you would be thriving so much that you didn't know it was even possible, honestly.
Indeed. I want to get back to this data part. I mentioned before that I love numbers. So getting back to the point that some studies suggest that the rate of mental health problems in people with learning disability is double than of the general population. And there is a couple of reasons, in fact, that influence this. One is the biology and genetics that may increase vulnerability to mental health problems. So remember that any of the of the learning disabilities that you may have are correlated to the fact of that you are producing certain hormones in lower or higher quantities. The same hormones may influence other things that may affect your capacity to manage anxiety or stress and so on. The other thing is about that there is a higher incidence of negative life events, like you are living challenges all the time. So it's almost like every day there is someone who is going to slap you in the face. So it is not that easy. So your confidence takes a toll. It is also the access to fewer resources and coping skills, because we say that it is about finding alternative mental processes that will allow you to thrive at work or in your education. So it is not easy. It's not something managing the mental capacity, finding mental processes to find alternatives, to rebuild your confidence, to find a way how you can shortcut or growth hack your one of the doors, which is the standard way of learning. We don't learn it. It's not that easy to find this type of information. And lastly, of course, is the impact of other people's attitudes, how other people perceives you. Hey, you're a little bit slow. And all of these comments, they add up on you and basically influence how you feel in terms of your mental health.
That's very true, because a lot of people, it's easier for them to be judgmental, and a lot of people's word affect you a lot, because I know a lot of families as well that may not be supportive or do not want to accept that their child might be having a learning challenge, and to just face it and overcome it. Rather, they just make them ignore it and be like, you're slow, or you're not trying hard enough, you're not giving it your 100%, you're just always tired, or you're just always on your phone. The reason you're always on your phone is because you're trying to avoid reality. You're trying to avoid things that are always affecting you constantly, things that you're overthinkingness, because you are not able to understand why certain things you are finding hard to do. So that's one of the main reasons.
So would you say that one of the ways in order to be able to manage our mental well-being, it is about how to digest these comments from how do you create either a shield around you, or how do you digest the incomprehensions from others of your difference?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. There is a good question from Krishna, and let me read it for you. It is seemingly normal people who are judgmental about people who are different. Why do you think from where does it come from? In fact, basically, the fact that we try to be judgmental about people who are different than us.
Sometimes it's just the way the person's been brought up, and sometimes a lot of people are just, they think that everybody needs to be perfect, including themselves and the people around them. And if there's any shortcomings, and then they're like, okay, straight up, you're just not smart enough, so I don't want to be associated with you. There's a lot of people, especially the way we're brought up, and different cultures do not want to accept that there is mental health issues, and there is learning challenges, and there are so many things broader that they have not spoken about. It's a very taboo topic up till today in many cultures. And I think it's important to bring this awareness to everybody possible, even students, people at the workplace, people your friends and family, because it's time people are more aware of this and teach themselves about this so they can help probably the people around them or maybe even themselves, honestly.
And I guess that is supernatural that the way the brain has been constructed is mainly dominated by two sides, pleasure or fear. So
Yeah.
whenever we have someone who not the standard, it is a change for us. It means that we need to behave differently, and automatically the brain will produce these hormones for fear, and then will make us drive into shortcuts, the judgmental shortcuts that will say, will associate with whatever is known in our culture, in our environment. So we will be quite reductive, simplifying the situation and say, oh, it's easier to categorize this person as he has less intelligence than trying to understand what could be the reason why this person is reacting in a non-standard way. So it is not about being perfect. You mentioned the word perfect. I kind of not agree. It is about perfect in the sense that it is a different thought process than me.
Yes.
So it is not just reacting to the standard way, expected way for a standard person. That's how we should be perceiving this area. And coming back here, we have a question from Brian. Why do you think some cultures shy away from learning disabilities?
I think maybe because they don't want to accept probably that something is wrong and they may need to work on it, because denial is a lot of people's main go-to. Is the first step is denial, where they don't want to accept, and they don't want to accept that something is wrong, because then they feel low self-worth and they immediately start doubting themselves, because it's a belief system from the time we were born that none of this should be happening. I didn't expect this to happen. I don't know why it happened, and something must be wrong with me. It's already portrayed as something really negative. So I feel like probably that's why people don't want to accept it.
And we have to understand that the understanding of how the brain works and the effects that are visible into behaviors is something quite new. So if we think about the Freud works correlating how the mental influences the fact that I cannot move a hand, that is beginning of the 20th century. If we understand the first time that mental health illnesses were recognized is end of the 20th century. So where the first time that the word burnout was used, it was towards the end of the 20th century, and only lately we have put the spotlight that that mental health is a pandemic. The World Health Organization only declared that a pandemic a couple of years back. So it is understandable that in some cultures we will correlate that something with the routines that we already know, with the type of judgments that we already know, which is the widely mass what they know, which is not based on science. It is based on beliefs, magic. Are you possessed? Simplification because of it might be in some cases because of religious reasons, or lack of education, that we oversimplify everything, and it might be that affects the judgment, and this goes in any country. So judgments like that is not because you are in the USA or you are in Pakistan that it might change. No, in fact, there is studies that prove that judgmental oversimplifications or reactions towards mental health are in the same proportions in most of the countries. So it is cultural in the sense of that this science of understanding how the brain processes information, it is quite new, and not everybody got the memo, the facts. The memo, facts is on.
Yes, that's completely true, actually.
Rose, is it possible to summarize, in fact, a couple of actions that if we have this fear that we may have been, that we are facing learning disabilities, what we should do in order not just only to detect it, but also to manage it in terms of our confidence and so on. Do you have some tips to give us?
Okay, so I would say first, very, very importantly, is getting yourself diagnosed by a certified doctor. And then I think the step second would be accepting it and to say that it's okay that I have a learning challenge. I'm neurodivergent now. I'm someone special, and I have so many more abilities than probably that I have not noticed, and people around me have not noticed. So second step I would say would be accepting it. And the third step I would say is trying to learn the different techniques. Like if, let's say, you have dyslexia, then I would say learn, number one is phonetics. So once you learn phonetics, I feel like slowly reading might be easier, typing emails might be easier, understanding certain informations might be easier, and to summarize a certain information that you receive will be easier. So I would say try to find the different techniques that suit you while you are learning different things or trying to do different things. And I would say sometimes it's okay to just take a moment and just pause and try to understand probably from where it's coming, what exactly is triggering certain things in me. So I would say that's one of the main things. And lastly, I feel like this is a process. You need to know it might take time. It is going to be a long journey, but once you get through it, the abilities and your potential that comes out, it's going to be amazing. Like I did not expect here to be today and bringing awareness about learning challenges. I never thought I would be able to speak in front of a lot of people. I would always stutter. I would get so nervous to a point because I feel like I would not be able to speak English right. But I'm here today speaking about this, bringing awareness. So I'm so sure that you'll be able to do much more things.
It looks so funny because when you say I'm not able to speak English right, I was thinking about me and my Spanish accent. Listen, we have still a little bit more of questions that just are being dropped. How much of your abilities goes to waste if you ignore learning disabilities in this modern era?
That's a very good question. I feel a lot because you're going to dwell only in the problem. You're not going to know how to push through and confront it and move past it. You're going to be stuck in that same position where you're like, I can't understand this email. Why can't I understand this email? And you're like, or maybe when you're writing an email, there's so many spelling mistakes. So you'll always be stuck at that first level because you're not able to understand what actually is a problem and what should you be focusing on. So by then there's already that drawback. By then you're already, because it's going to affect you emotionally and it's going to affect you physically as well. So I feel that the potential that you could have reached, you would be pushed back because you're only focusing on the negatives when you are not diagnosing yourself. And also it helps you understand yourself better.
Indeed. Getting back to that number, so if the population with learning disabilities are suffering twice as much as the standard population, so missing the opportunity to diagnose it and understand and have and accept the situation is the first step in order to work better into how to rebuild your confidence and how to find alternative processes in order to thrive in your career, in your education. Without identification, you will be, as you mentioned, being pulled into this vortex, into this vicious circle of self-whipping.
Sabotaging, yes.
Exactly. So you will be suffering with the same pain, and every obstacle will be something that you cannot climb or jump upon. Next question. Yes. Do you think that employers will see people with learning disability as a problem and reduce their employability?
I feel that depends now on the company you have joined, of how open-minded they are and what resources do they give for with individuals who are neurodivergent. It depends on the company, because if you're a company that doesn't want to look at it and just goes like, okay, I think you're not good enough for the position, you should. So maybe instead of sharing with them, I think you should try a system called the buddy system. So where one of your co-workers might help you, where you can tell them, this is probably the place I have issues in. Could you just help me out? And maybe you can help them in places they have issues in, but you might be really good at. So you're helping each other. And I think until then, I would say find another job where you can, where people over there accept, especially the higher management, and they give you the resources and probably better environment to success in it.
Um, Indeed, and one of the things to consider is that if you're facing, if you're working in a corporation or you are part of an educational organization that is not capable of managing your difference, because it's just that, a difference, then it's maybe time to consider to don't take a job or don't take this educational organization, because the cultural environment will be already formatted in such a way that not only your supervisor, but your colleagues will be rewarded for behaviors that are completely decomposing a culture that could be futuristic or could be more developmental for with any of the people, of the employees. So it is time also to consider not to take a job with this type of organizations.
Right.
Listen, so I think it is time to kind of recap the takeaways. If you allow me, just I have two things to mention. So the size of the problem, it is substantial. When we are talking about 20% of the population with dyslexia, 5% of the population with ADHD, we are not talking about small numbers, considering that a big proportion of people are in, working or studying. So these are numbers that are quite significant, and it's not just a micro minority. We are talking about one of the biggest challenges for people with learning disability. It is about the perception of others. We have said that 80% of the population believes that dyslexia is associated with low intelligence, and this affects your mental health, the confidence that you have. But we have said also that there is a way forward, that basically it is possible not only to thrive and enjoy what you do, but to be amazingly good. And we have named a couple of people who have done amazingly good because of that specific difference. Maybe it is maybe not because they had a higher IQ or whatsoever. It is because there is always a way that the brain finds in order to compensate, where one of the doors is open, a pathway or a way to learn, many other doors might be worthwhile investigating. And it is about finding these alternatives to learn and achieve the same or even more, that will help you out to thrive at work. Any last comments, Rose?
I would say that I think I need everyone to spread this awareness as much as possible with your friends, family, co-workers, colleagues, because the more awareness that this brings out, the more people you might be helping as well, and maybe even yourself.
I think that just if you want to touch base with us about any of the questions, so we are in LinkedIn, so either Ivan Palomino or either Rose Thompson, in order to further discuss about the topic. We're certainly going to talk more about this topic because we find that there is a lot of engagement and a lot of interest on this. And I think that if we want to recreate better cultures at work or better cultures in higher education, this is some of the topics that finally that should be not hidden, because it is true that we were doing some research to know how much this topic has been talked about, and we didn't find much. In fact, yes, there's a couple of studies, but from the standard awareness in corporates or in higher education, we didn't find much. So I think it's worthwhile continuing talking about it. Rose, you cannot believe how happy I am to have this discussion with you. The passion that you have about the topic is contagious. It makes me feel good because we are doing something that we are meant to do, helping people to thrive better at work or in their education. So this is completely in line with the mission of what we do at Bessern. So if you have any questions, please reach out. Otherwise, go to Bessern, BESSERN.co. Thank you for this lovely conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.